Welcome back to Creating Your Life, Sex and Romance, episode 47, The Three Kinds of Friendship. So today we're going to talk about friendship, and especially friendship as it relates to marriage. This goes all the way back to Aristotle. It's interesting how the ancient Greeks have done so many things, uh, some fine distinctions in thinking about things, and we don't teach them much anymore for some reason. But I've always found it really helpful to first check in with them. Aristotle was the first to distinguish in a book called the Nicomachean Ethics, or something like that. It's an ethics-based treatise that he wrote. That there are three kinds of friendship: those based on pleasure, those based on usefulness, and those based on themselves. So first, let's talk about friendships based on pleasure, and most of these distinctions I'm going to make today, you're already familiar with. Those based on pleasure, these are the kind of people they're fun to hang out with, go to parties, play games, have sex with. But the thing you've probably noticed after a while, that once this pleasure ends, often the friendship ends. If you don't have that pleasure in common, the friendship just doesn't survive it. Friendships based on pleasure, they're a means to an end, not an end in themselves. So these kind of friendships relate to something. It's based on pleasure. It's more about that than anything else. The second kind is similar. It's those kinds of friendships that are based on usefulness. So friends you have at school or work, church, if you're a member of a political party. Um, these are valuable. You work together, you accomplish things together, you have similar goals in mind. But if something changes once you leave school, once you change jobs, if you happen to change religions, if you happen to shift other political parties, often these kinds of friendships come to an end because what you have in common, it's really not based on you and that person as much as it's based on the thing that you do together. So yeah, when the usefulness ends, these kinds of friendships often end as well. And that brings us to the third kind of friendship that Aristotle talks about. And these are friendships that are based on themselves. These are friends who you just like being with. They like being with you. It doesn't matter what you're doing. It doesn't matter if there's any specific pleasure or usefulness involved. It's almost as if they improve you by being present. You're a better person. Um, Another kind of way of identifying who these people are, they're the ones that you may have not seen for years. Somebody could have gone away. Maybe you didn't even stay in contact that much. But if years go by and you see them again, it's like you were never gone or they were never gone. You're right back to where you were. And it's just as comfortable as it was. These friendships tend to be timeless. Friendships based on themselves are rare. You usually can only count them on one hand. But when you have these kind of friendships, they're they're in and of themselves. That's the only way to describe it. You can't really. There may be pleasure or usefulness involved occasionally, but that's not what the friendship is based on. It's based on, you could almost say, on the soul, in that person. That person is soul. Now, imagine a marriage that's based on each of these three kinds of friendship: a marriage that's based on pleasure, a marriage based on usefulness, and a marriage based on itself. The first two are actually very, very common. Let's talk about a marriage based on pleasure. Life with this person is a party. They're great to have around. They're beautiful to look at. The sex is great. It's always pleasurable. Um, but what happens when that pleasure ends? When it's not about the party or the beauty or the sex, something shifts. Um, Marriages based on pleasure are means to an end. They're not an end in and of themselves. So if the party ends, if the person loses some of their beauty, if the sex shifts or something, the reason why you're staying together comes to an end, unless of course you have children. And often people where the pleasure is ended will stay together because of the kids. But at the end of the day, these kinds of marriages are based on something that doesn't always last, and so it's a means to an end, not an end in of itself. And once the pleasure ends, the relationship ends, the marriage ends. Then there's marriage based on usefulness. The person that you're with has lots of money. That can be very useful. Brings a lot of pleasures, but it's useful. Beautiful on the arm at social functions or political events or that kind of thing. When you're out among people, this is the kind of person you want to be with. You could have, if you have lots of money and this kind of beauty, and you're able to dress up nice, have a lot of fashion sense. You have rich friends. There's lots of travel involved. Wow, I mean, this is great. And then the stock market crashes, and what happens? Well, if the money goes away, if the social functions aren't there, maybe this marriage wasn't a good idea. Maybe you have to go find somebody else that has money and beauty and rich friends and allows you to travel. Marriages based on usefulness are means to an end as well, and when they end when the usefulness ends. Now, occasionally, again, having children or something, people stay together. But if it's not useful, it can be, if that's your goal in a marriage, then it can be rather painful and unlikely to be a happy marriage. Then there's a third kind of marriage, the marriage based on itself. Pleasures and usefulness can come and go, but they don't form the foundation of this marriage. They're not the things that made this marriage happen. It's because this person was somebody you just love being with, whether or not pleasure or usefulness is involved. Now, it doesn't mean that these things can't include pleasure and usefulness. So, yes, the pleasures of sex and travel, great conversation. It's useful. You can work together, create a home together, learn from each other, raise a family, or serve the community together. There can still be aspects of pleasures and usefulness involved, but again, that's not what the foundation is. It's about this person, even if times are tough, even when it's hard. You'd rather go through hard times with this person than anybody else. The pleasure and the usefulness become the furniture that fills out the home that is created out of the friendship itself. And this is something that you don't see very often. And again, it's you can probably, if you look among your friends, you'll probably see that. But it's the kind of marriage where people can be married for decades. They can have their 40th, 50th, 60th wedding anniversary, and that love is still there. That desire that this is the one person to be with when nobody else is present. That's how it goes. On the next episode, we're going to talk about romance after marriage. And remember, go to my website, marcandrealexander.com, for books and other videos and audio.